Southern Legend Outdoors Studio, the Be a Legend podcast. Brought to you from SouthernLegendOutdoors.com. And now your hosts, Kevin Bearfield and Kerry Nelson. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. It's your time now. Be a legend.
Welcome to another episode of the Be a Legend podcast, Southern Legend Outdoors. I've got Kerry Nelson here, Ken Butler, our co-host, and we have a guest with us this week, Brother Mark Newell. Brother Mark, we're glad to have you with us this week.
Man, good to be here. Good to be here.
Brother Mark is a wildlife biologist. He got his degree at Mississippi State.
Go Dogs.
Do we have any other comments we want to?
Just don't mention.
Comments need to be made at this time.
Go off week.
Go off week.
Yeah, they not playing this week.
So we're gonna win. Can't lose.
Y'all switch. We play Arkansas.
No.
And he is also the national sales manager for Tecomate Seed Company.
That's right.
And he is also the youth director,
Yes.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
At Algoma Baptist Church.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you got a
pastor.
he is the associate pastor
to Dr.
Okay.
Smith, whom I hope, all jokes aside about Brother Mark, he's a lot of things, as all of us sitting here. We're like the guy in the old Western, they walk in and he's the jailer, and they're like, hey, I need to see the mayor, and he just switches hats. Remember that guy?
Sure.
And you say, okay, well, I need the sheriff, and then he puts the sheriff hat on. The same guy's everything.
Kind of like Andy Taylor.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, Brother Mark's that way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's husband, he's father first. He's works in all this. He's got his own guide service, consulting, and he's got a lot. But let me tell y'all this that don't know him. Everybody that knows him knows what I'm going to say is true. But if you've never heard him preach, he's God's man, and he can preach the book.
Yeah.
I mean, really expound the Bible for the youth of our day and speak to them in a way that just is very straightforward with what the Bible says, but teaching them, I've sit there and listened to him teach many a times. And every February we do the same. We're in a conference that he oversees, and I get to preach it. But on Sunday mornings he teaches before I preach, and we use the same subject every year. And so I get to sit there, and before I preach that last sermon, I get to steal notes from him because he's just that good. So I just wanted to tell everybody that's listening.
Yeah.
What you're finna hear about him in the hunting world is true, and all that. But this is a fine Christian man. He is God's man. I have been with him behind the scenes. I have been with him behind the scenes with my family. My son has traveled part of the world with him, and I'm just wanting to say that the guest that we have tonight is he's a real deal, and he's a friend of mine. And
Amen.
Appreciate that, brother.
we,
Love you, man.
Even though
Oh boy.
he dresses in that
Oh, yeah.
Moron in white every now and then, but I love him. I love him.
Well, we're really grateful that you've joined us tonight.
Sure.
Brother Mark's agreed to be with us on a pretty regular basis and give us some insight. He certainly has a level of experience that many of us guys don't have, and I think will be able to give us some tips and advice on property management and food plot management. So we're excited to hear some things from Brother Mark tonight that he's going to be able to share with us in the upcoming weeks. But I guess we need to go ahead and knock out our football.
Yeah, we need to get our picks. We're a little behind.
And I guess go ahead. I'm gonna mention too. We've been out for 2 weeks. Most everyone knows Brother Kerry travels preaching quite a bit, so we're trying to work through our schedule. And next week we're going to have a special episode. We'll say a little bit about that a little later in the podcast, but we apologize to our listeners out there. We're going to try to get a little more regular and be a little more consistent and have at least a weekly podcast. But from time to time, we will have those kinds of things that come up. But let's go ahead and get into our football picks tonight. And I guess we have to give State their
Yes.
due this week. I mean, last week they beat number 8 Auburn.
Go Fitz.
Fitzgerald
Go
broke the
Fitz.
record,
Yep.
and not a record, not an easy record. And he had the competition he passed are men that'll be in the College Football Hall of Fame. So, he didn't accidentally do this. You had to tip your hat to him. As we Ole Miss fans say, he got half his yards in the Egg Bowl 2 years ago against our defense. I mean, he should have won the Heisman, just based on that game. But, yeah, tip your hat.
To go over Cam Newton, to go over Tim Tebow, all those great
My
names,
favorite.
Yeah.
and to beat, just it's unbelievable what he did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was wearing maroon and white, by the way. Just want to say that.
Yeah, we figured you. What a.
I don't have much to
our
say, so we got to say
our
good
state-
things when we can.
Our Mississippi State listeners are going to enjoy this podcast because they finally have a voice
Yeah,
Right.
on the show.
and he ain't scared. He
Yeah.
ain't scared to voice his opinion.
Oh, man.
Well, they're off.
State,
They're off.
Yeah, I'm picking State this week.
Yeah, they're off. They're off this
That's
week.
your only week, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ole Miss is traveling to Arkansas this week. We put a lot of points on the board this past weekend, but be a little more of a test this week. What do you think, Ken?
Well, Ole Miss is 7-point favorite.
Yeah.
We got beat the last 4 times we played them.
Yeah.
We had, in my opinion, we were supposed to beat them the last 4 times.
Well, sure. We
Yeah.
can't never them and Van to kill us.
So look, I don't feel optimistic on it. I'm picking Arkansas, and I think they'll beat us more than 7. That's just me.
I was a little shocked
Until
that we were
prove something
picked.
in SEC,
Yeah.
I just can't. Hey, I'm one of the biggest Ole Miss fans, but I'm just being
Well,
realistic.
last year, we're finna go up nearly 40 points, right?
Yeah,
And our tight end's running down the field wide open, and he gets touched, fumbles the ball, and the next thing you know, we're beat. We're
Yeah.
blowing them off the field. That's the way
yeah.
we're blowing them off the field, beating them, finna go to Atlanta
Had a miracle play.
about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
They got 4th and 7,282 yards. Fumble it around, kick it
Throw
around,
it over
running
the
back
shoulder.
picks it up, throws it over the shoulder, gets some popcorn, the hot dog, first down.
Yep. It's
So,
over.
so should we beat them? Yes. Will we beat them? Probably not.
But that's my pick. You
I'm
write it
going Ole
down.
Miss. I'm going Ole Miss. And Richard is not here tonight. He's with his mother. In his words, I choose Arkansas because they put up 31 against Bama, and y'all have no defense.
That sounds.
So
just-
Richard gets Arkansas. I'm going Ole Miss.
But one thing about the Alabama and Arkansas game, it was 58 or 60 to 14.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they score a couple of touchdowns late. Alabama,
Yeah, they
when it
put
was
the-
21-0, they didn't care anymore. They knew they were fixing to win the game, and they wasn't interested in the rest of the game. They still scored how many? Was it 60 something
Yeah.
to
Unbelievable.
30 something?
Yeah.
But they gave up 2. But it was 58 to 14
At
one
that
time.
point, they
It
put
was-
Hoover high in there.
Yeah,
you
it
know.
was. So
We think, Brother Mark.
Going to have to go Arkansas
Oh man.
I would hope you did.
by 10 points.
10 points.
that's about right. That was
What?
I'm gonna go Ole Miss, but only because I'm gonna say because we're playing in Little Rock. That might
that's
give
true,
us
too.
just a little
I
bit
wasn't
of an
thinking about
edge in that it's not going to be on campus. The only thing they did score those points against Alabama. That you never know in a team's mind what that might do to motivate them a little bit to think, hey, we scored, what was it, 31?
Yeah.
Even though they probably did it on the 4th string, if there is such. But I'm I'm going to just barely give Ole Miss an edge on this, and hopefully Tamu and the receivers will open it up. Put a lot of points on the board, outscore them.
I didn't say this, but I will be preaching Thursday and Friday of this week in Arkansas. And I'm glad that they're no good this year, so I don't have to listen to nothing. But they have beat us the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And 5 is the number of grace in the Bible. And I'm hoping God will give us some grace, and we can go 4-1 the last 5 years.
I might need to change my pick.
But I am going to be in Arkansas, and I'm going to be proud. And hopefully don't burn my testimony when they go to talking about 4th and 27 or whatever that was. That's all I ever hear from Arkansas fans.
Yeah.
You know, what's up? High five. 4th and 20, whatever.
All right, Tennessee and Auburn.
Oh, let's see. Looks like Auburn's a 15-point favorite. I'm going. I mean, Tennessee's just not any good at all.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, if
going-
you ever hear the words
Yeah.
Tennessee and anybody, you go
Yeah.
anybody.
you know,
I
I'm
mean-
going. I guess this would be quick. I'm going
Yeah.
Auburn.
Yeah, Auburn.
Yeah. Auburn will bounce back this week
Without a
after
doubt.
that state loss.
Oh, yeah.
Richard, Auburn over Tennessee.
Okay.
You going Auburn?
Oh yeah, by a lot, by more than 15.
Yeah. Well, they're
Takes-
going to bounce back too because they got. Not saying that State went better than them, but their offense looked like Ned in the first primer.
They-
I mean, they were terrible. So you
Terrible.
know this week they've
They were
emphasized
terrible.
because their
Everything was
defense
bad.
played pretty decent.
Yeah.
You know, kept them in the game.
Right.
Their offense couldn't even. I mean, they got a guy running wide open. He could have hook shotted it and hit
Yeah.
him, and he just throwed it 10 yards over. You know,
But now I don't think their defense played decent. They gave up 300-something yards rushing to State.
yeah,
Auburn.
they run
Yeah.
and they
I mean,
manhandled them up front.
That don't
They did.
Auburn
They
that
did.
usually doesn't let that happen. State was on a mission and they got it.
Auburn's
done.
gonna be
And
mad.
really is
They
the
gonna be
reason
mad.
why they were ranked where they were was because of their
Right.
defense.
Sure.
And it just didn't really.
Yeah.
I hope that same Auburn team comes to Ole Miss this year.
Oh yeah,
If that same Auburn
they
team
won't.
comes to Oxford,
They won't.
Then-
I mean, they'll be ready.
Oh, they
Yeah.
have that fixed.
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
everything fixed.
yeah, they'll
They
break
come
our
out.
leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a little
That's
habit
right.
of that.
Texas A&M, South Carolina.
South Carolina is they getting 2.5 points. So A&M's favoring this game, couple of points. I'm going. They're playing at South Carolina. South Carolina's due,
Oh, so Texas A&M's favored by 2.5.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
and they're playing at South Carolina. So
Yeah.
I'm going with Carolina. They're due a win. I know they won in overtime this last week. Was it Missouri, I believe?
Yeah.
So I think they'll beat Texas A&M. Bentley's back. I know he's going to start. They announced it, I think, the last day or two. So I'm going South Carolina.
I'm going Texas A&M, and the reason I'm going Texas A&M is because they got a little something going right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it ain't big, it ain't flashy, and it ain't. But for them to beat Kentucky with Kentucky on the roll like they've been, to stop that, you know,
They got the momentum. I
they
think.
got and I think South Carolina, as Ken said, they did win overtime, but they didn't meet the expectations early on. They was hoping, and so I'm gonna say Texas A&M wins that game. And Richard picked South Carolina just
Go
as
Rich.
Ken did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good job, dog.
I'm going Texas A&M. I think they feel like that win last week was huge.
Oh yeah,
In their
and it
mind.
was.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky was
Good
undefeated
Kentucky
at
team.
that point, and who knows? I mean, potential Heisman at Kentucky. I mean, and that was a really good game.
Yeah,
Look for
But,
Kentucky to lose several more games.
Yeah,
Right
because
here.
of that.
Because of
Yeah.
that.
they've been brought back to earth.
Kentucky's still Kentucky. Even though
Kentucky.
they had a great run right here
Yeah.
in the first Kentucky, even though they're better, but Kentucky is still kind of like when Ole Miss or State has a good run, there's always
Yeah.
something's
Yeah.
going to happen there at the end to
Yeah.
keep something from happening. So.
And last week was probably their real test. You know, I mean, they had played State at home, and Florida. I mean, beating Florida at Florida was a
Well,
was
that
a
woke
quality
Florida
win.
up.
Yeah.
I mean, Florida's went on a
But
decent run since then.
Mm-hmm.
But let's think about this while we're on this subject. Kentucky's still Kentucky. Ole Miss still Ole Miss. We say things like it. what about the teams like an Alabama and Georgia that's always playing for it?
Yeah.
They're always playing for it.
Yeah.
Tradition.
And just think about that, though.
I know.
Yeah.
They don't have that 3-game win streak and then lose 4. You know what I'm saying?
You know why? Because they had 85 that traveled to Ole Miss, and 70 were 4- and 5-star players.
Yeah.
Coming into Oxford.
But that's that's my point
Tradition.
about the whole thing.
Tradition.
Is, you know, I saw y'all seen the little guy that does the funny videos. You know, you got the guy from Alabama that you know how Alabama fans watch game. Have y'all seen that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, they got there's a little white guy, and if y'all ain't seen it, you need to see it. Some SEC guy, and he does. Well, he did a thing the other day. He's doing a yard sale, and he's selling a hot seat.
I saw that.
Coach's hot. All right.
Coach's
so
hot
the
seat.
guy that does the
There's a little
Alabama
fire on the seat
had a
on
little
there?
fire on the seat, and all the fans was coming up buying it for their coach because they're sick and tired of their coach.
Yeah.
So the Alabama guy that does how Alabama fans walk, he walks up and he says, "Is there really teams that don't like their coach?
Y'all really sell hot
Y'all
seats?
really sell hot seats? I've never heard of that. You know, how in the world do you not like your coach? Well, you got Nick Saban.
That
But
says
that's
it all.
amazing. What you said is what we're
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah.
You know, hey, State 14 in the country, 2 losses out of the top 25. Ole Miss play for a Sugar Bowl. Next thing you know, we can't even get in a bowl because we're on probation. You got some teams that are there every. Can you imagine the fan bases of that school when they do have a slump? I mean, that's new to them. When we do have a up, that can be new to us. When they have a slump, and you know, just be honest about it.
I mean, how
Kentucky
easy?
is
Yeah.
Kentucky,
Yeah.
unless they run off 5, 6, 7 years where they're like this.
Yeah.
Because all of us will have that 1 or 2 years here and there.
Yeah.
You know, so and it's just the facts of it. I hate to admit it as an Ole Miss fan, but the truth is,
Kentucky basketball.
yeah,
Same thing. Alabama football.
right. Well, now that I've made everybody sad, let's move on to the next.
Georgia at LSU should be
All right.
an interesting
Richard has
Yeah.
picked LSU.
Okay.
Really?
All right. Oh yeah. You remember I picked LSU not too long ago, and y'all didn't
Yeah,
like it.
I
And it
know.
worked
True.
out.
I'm going Georgia.
But Georgia's
Big time.
7.5 point favorite at LSU, and it's a 2:30. It's not a night game in Baton Rouge. It's 2:30.
That's good for
Wow,
Georgia
That's very good for Georgia.
Good for Georgia,
and Georgia's fans.
but I'm still going Georgia.
And
I don't
Georgia's
think-
cars.
Yeah.
And Georgia's wives.
Vehicles.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be things to
Until
see.
somebody beats Georgia,
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
Georgia.
Georgia here. Missouri at Alabama.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
last one. Yeah,
Missouri.
we might as well go ahead and say Alabama.
Right.
Be done with it.
Yeah.
27 points.
Yeah. Nothing more to say.
Yeah.
And then our cousin Eddie pick of the week, Mr. Dan Mullen down in Florida.
Yeah, I'm going
I'm
Florida.
just going.
Man, Vandy can't beat nobody but Ole Miss. I mean, and you know how we do with them, man. It's like,
Look,
I have
50-50.
what? Yeah, it
It
is.
is.
It's crazy.
I don't care if it does cost me a steak dinner. I can go ahead and tell you I'm not going to pick Florida the rest of this year. I hope he loses every game he coaches for the rest of his life.
Commodores, that's on your tongue.
Why don't you come on and tell us what you really feel and what you really
So
think?
you're going Vandy.
I'm going Vandy just because I want it to happen so bad.
I want a steak, and I'm going Florida.
Florida. And by the
Vandy in an
way,
upset.
talking about Vandy,
I mean, did you hear him at the end of that game the other night? I thought the gall. I mean, at the end, he's like, the swamp is back. You know, on our way to the national championship. I mean, this guy, he's like, I mean, tell me as a state fan.
Oh, we loved him.
Listen,
I was going
I
to
know-
say,
I know-
we loved him.
But
We
listen,
loved him.
I have to ask this question. I asked someone last night, I said, do you guys now see, when you watch him coach Florida, how ridiculous this guy is? Like, what we were able to watch for what, how many years? 7? 6? Was he there 7, 6 years?
He's there 10
he
years.
was
He
there
is.
a long
Yeah.
time.
Wow.
He went 6-2 in bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now he added to the fire a lot with the
School up
rival
north.
that school up
He
north,
did,
and
but-
he
And that's why he
had a lot
took
of
Florida.
rhetoric
Now
there.
every school's up
It's
north.
just so.
Yeah.
That was drum roll right there. Anyway,
He's chasing his players down on the sideline at the state game, like, just. Did you see him at the end of the game when they scored and
I
he's
think
over
you
there
have
dancing?
personal
And,
vendetta. I think you
He
have.
sees things that nobody else sees.
Yeah, I think you're.
Go Vandy.
Go-
That's all I'm gonna say. Go
Hey,
Vandy.
speaking of
I
steak
can't
dinner.
stand him.
Do you remember? This is a personal memory of mine. Do you remember that I ate at my first Roost Chris with you in Nashville
Yes.
at a coaches meeting? Appreciate that steak.
That was a good steak.
Yeah, and after Florida beats Vandy, you can take me back. The best steak. Oh, my
yeah,
goodness.
that's a good
So I'm the only one that's going to Vandy.
Yeah.
You're the only one that hates that man like that.
Golly.
I don't like him, but I mean,
I guess we got to talk about something else.
all right, let's
Yeah,
move
let's
on.
move on.
Brother Mark, tell us a little bit about what's happening with Tecomate Seed, and
Sure.
once again, he's
Yeah.
a national sales manager, and tell us a little bit about what you do and about
Yeah.
the Tecomate product. We all use it.
Sure.
I know Kerry's put out. How many bags have you put out this year?
21 food plots as we speak,
Yeah,
and
I
every
knew that.
one of them have Tecomate.
Good.
And we've got
4
some that-
years in running that we've used Tecomate. This is the 4th year, and one thing about let me say this before Brother Mark says anything, because we'll sit back and listen. I've never used anything that's done better than Tecomate. Now listen to what I'm finna tell you. Tecomate is tremendous. Me and Brother Mark just 2 years ago helped a youth kill a turkey, and I mean you could just bury the turkey and the youth in how it had just grown, the clover. You remember that? We got pictures of that.
the chase, I call it.
Yeah. And my point
Is
is,
that when you went jumping through the flopping? And
No, that was year
that was
before
this
that.
year.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's-
yeah.
Same place.
That's
Same
what I'm
place.
Almost
talking
the exact same place.
Yeah.
I got you.
But
my point
that's
is,
another story.
you're fixing to hear from a guy that, number one, you can ask him. You think his customers ask him questions, you ought to see what his friends do to him. And I'm one of them. All the time. But Tecomate it's up there with anything you want to put against.
Yeah.
And the reason that I use Tecomate is because of this man. I want to support him and his business. I want him to have a business. And when I think about food plots, I think about supporting this man. And
Yeah.
so when I say that, I'm going to turn it over to him. But I'm not just buying his product because he's my friend. I personally have had great success with it and have watched many wild game bite the dust laying in Tecomate.
Well,
So-
I will say this before it goes into it. Last year, Daddy and I both shot wall hanging bucks in Tecomate food plots.
Awesome.
Both of us, and so it's worked well. But tell us more, Brother Mark, about what's going on. And
Yeah, just real quick, again, it's really hard to have a title now with Tecomate. I pretty much run all of our seed line, from sourcing it from places from like Australia, India to all parts of the United States. We're always looking for the best quality forages, regardless of what they are. Like we was just talking about our forage oats, our new trophy grazer forage oats. It is at the front lines of oat technology, and these are genetically specific oats that are for production. They're chosen for their sweetness. They have a higher sugar content. They are more palatable. They're tender, or I'll add a couple of extra herbs at the end of it.
Yeah.
All of that goes into effect on the preference of those particular oats. So every variety that we use in the majority of our blends, we have some blends that we still use standard oats and standard wheat and things of that. But when you get into our specific blends or our specific varieties, that variety's there for a reason. There was research behind that. There was a thought process behind that. There was an awful lot of seeds that we did research with before this particular seed goes into a Tecomate bag.
Right.
Same thing with our clovers. Same thing with our chicory. Same thing with whatever that we have. Varieties are important. Me and Ken was talking about clovers, and everybody knows deer love clover, turkeys love clover. Well, we take that even further than that. on our white clovers, there's the white clovers that we have are specifically chosen because deer like them better. They're better with bypass protein. That means that gives them the nutrition that they need to grow those big antlers.
Yeah.
All of that is very, very important. There's a lot of good varieties of things that are out there on the market today. But one good thing when you buy Tecomate, I'm behind it, number one, being our seed biologist. Number two, I source everything, and it does not go in a Tecomate bag unless I approve it. So, and y'all probably didn't even know that, So, but the past couple of years, that's been the case. It's been up to me to make sure that that's in there.
Yeah.
We work with the greatest growers in Oregon. I have 4 or 5 different sources in Oregon. That's where all your clovers are grown anyway. I don't know if y'all ever looked on the back of any clover bag, grown in Oregon, Wow. And there's what's called the valley in Oregon. It's an awful big valley, and there's a lot of stuff that's grown there. So, but that's what we do. It's what I do. And I do a lot more than that as well. I mean, from going to different shows to promote our products, asking questions, talking about what I'm talking about here with you guys today, but also on the management side, we're called Tecomate Wildlife Systems. And the seed is just actually part of the system. All right. Like Ken's place, Ken he plants during the summertime. He plants during the fall. He has perennial stuff that's always there. All of that's part of a system, and getting the right seed for your product. Like me and Ken was talking about, there were certain brassicas that he used of us the deer didn't eat. I said, hey, I've seen that happen before. Yeah, they were our product. Deer just didn't like them. Okay, let's find something that works for his property. Yeah. And every property is different. Brother Kerry uses our Greenfield product. He's always had good luck with it. Somebody else may use it and not have good luck with it. Well, good. Hey, we got about 50 different types of product. Greenfield's just one. It's a good one. I use it a lot too. But we have Maxatrat. We have Monster Mix. We have a whole assortment of different things. So finding, and that's what I do an awful lot. You can't imagine the phone calls that I get during this time of year, especially in September. Or really, it starts in July, because folks in the north, in Iowa and Illinois, is places where we love to go hunt. Us southern folks love to go hunt. They're planting as soon as the 4th is over. That's when their fall food plots start going in. Mm-hmm. So it starts then with asking questions, and then we just try to figure a system out for each and every property that we have. Well, how many acres do you have? How many food plots do you have? How many deer do you have? And all of that goes in, and we figure out a system of what to plant, when to plant, on their property to give them the best results that they're looking for. That's what we do. That's what I do for Tecomate. So,
what would you recommend someone who maybe has not used your product and they're not as familiar, and they're gonna try something this year?
Yeah.
There's I know
sure.
I know on the bag itself, you're still within that window right now.
Absolutely.
I think on the bag it shows for our region maybe October 15th, but
yeah,
that's all relative to the weather that we're having. I mean, from year to year that might change. We may have a little late summer. Some years we get a little early freeze. So talk a little bit about, I guess, the timing of getting it in right here, maybe in our local area, and what product you'd recommend, and maybe multiple products, kind of, have a couple of food plots out there and see what the deer are responding to.
Absolutely. Well, first I want to say we have 2 very basic food plot blends that are our best sellers. One's called Greenfield, which is wheat, oats, triticale, peas, brassicas, and clovers. And then we have Maxatrat, which is the same grain component, wheat, oats, triticale, has peas in it, also has a more intense selection of clovers, both annual clovers and perennial, and chicory. No brassicas in Maxatrat, there are brassicas in Greenfield. So there's 2 mixes right there. One of those mixes is going to work on your property. Yeah. So what I try to tell people who's never planted anything, or regardless if they've never planted our products or never even planted food plots before, I said, hey, get a bag of each, make you 2 food plots, or if you got a big one, put one in one and one in the other, see what they like best. The cool thing is, with both of those blends, you're going to have a diversity of pretty much everything that's in there.
Yeah.
And then you can see what they're really liking, like, hey, they really like that chicory, that place in Natchez that we were talking about. I can't hardly get chicory to grow. As soon as it comes out, Ken, I just hammer it. and it's hard to find it. We were doing a setup for Bucks of Tecomate, our TV show. Also, I'm a co-host for Bucks of Tecomate. We'll talk about that another day. But hopefully we'll get to share, because my season starts in North Carolina in 2 weeks, actually. So hopefully in time to come we can share some of those hunts. We'll talk more about bucks later. But just trying to find what works on a property. And if you do Greenfield, you do Max Attract, and you got everything that's there. When choosing a particular blend, it's always important what level hunter you are. What are your goals? Are you just want something to green up and shoot a deer off of? Then okay, here's some choices. Or if you're like Ken and some others that are, hey, I'm really trying to manage my deer herd, I want this for a result. And then that kind of goes into that. So I don't know. That's always a loaded question. What should I plant?
Yeah.
It really depends on what your goals are, what you're
trial and
looking
error.
for. Right, exactly. Yeah. My favorite thing now, especially planting late in the year, you just mentioned late in the year, that's also what's good about those forage oats, trophy grazer forage oats. These things will grow, they'll germinate in 34 degree weather.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I'm just getting me some.
That's what I'm saying. So everybody,
So you're saying you can plant those in December?
you can plant those in December.
Now,
I don't suggest it. I'm just saying,
It
like
will.
to this year, like if it's late, maybe it's November before. Maybe you're hunting next to a soybean field or in a soybean field, and you got to wait for the soybeans to get out and get your food plot in, or something like that. I know a lot of farmers that do that.
That'd be a good option for you.
Or you've worked and you can't get off, and hey, now I finally got time. I finally got a week off, or it's too dry, or it's too wet, or whatever. If it's really late, a good quality forage oat. Ours is called trophy grazers. There's other, and I'll just go ahead and say it. There's other forage, high quality forage. There's a reason why forage oats cost more than regular oats. They cost sometimes twice as much more, but there's a reason behind that.
Yeah.
And they're a better quality, and they'll grow later and will mature later.
do they get real tall?
They can get real tall.
They don't eat them down.
Right,
I guess?
they don't eat them down. They're also, what's cool about a forage oat and a regular oat, a forage oat is what's called a long juvenile. And a regular oat is just whatever it is. So anything that's in that juvenile state, the deer like it better.
Right.
So
Tender.
exactly. The forage oats stay in that state longer,
Gotcha.
even though they're taller. They still have that particular thing. So there's a great advantage of that. And then what I do with the forage oats is an excellent mix. To me, maybe the best all. And then for attraction, we always hear people talk about attraction. What's the best thing I can plant for attraction that's going to bring those deer in?
Yeah.
And the forage oat varieties, it's going to be hard to beat, because they just love. Now, there's not a whole lot of nutrition value, but they like them, and they'll come to them. So what I've been doing here lately with those is I plant 2 different varieties of clover, a red clover and a white clover, and chicory in our forage oats. I'm going to tell you, that's hard to beat.
You mix that yourself?
Yes, mix that yourself. About 2 pounds of clover, 2 pounds of white, 2 pounds of red, 2 pounds of chicory, because clover and chicory goes a long way. Mix that with 50 pounds of forage oats. Put all that on an acre. You'll be pretty strong.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Ken, I got a food plot that's weak right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to cut that food plot up because it still might make it. Can I top sow the forage oats
Yes.
on top?
You can top sow the forage oat, but you have to do it at a double rate, because you're not
Okay.
going to get the germination. But still, that's fine. Yeah, you got to spend a little bit more to get some extra
Sure.
seed. But if
Sure.
you get 50% germination,
Sure.
you're in good shape.
That's
Yep.
good to know. I'm going to do that.
And then
a good
something else done that me and Kim was talking about earlier. One little technique that we use in our soybeans is our standing soybeans, or our standing lab, or our standing black stallion cowpeas. Me and Kim was talking about a variety of summer pea that we have. I have a property here in Pontotoc County, and it's about an 1.5 acre, 2 acre food plot that has standing beans. I went in and broadcast those forage oats, the clovers, and the chicory on top of the standing beans. And I did that about a 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks ago. And I went back today. It's the first time I went and checked them. and all under those beans, and I know y'all can't see it, but I'm holding up about 6 inches of forage oats is growing under all of those soybean or under all of those peas,
Wow.
and then all the clover and chicory is about 1 inch tall. So as soon as when we get a frost and all that stuff starts dying out and falling out, and deer starts eating all that other stuff, there's your green food plot underneath it. What happens is it's kind of neat in either standing beans, standing peas, whatever it is. It don't work as well as corn because they're just a little too tall. But with the beans, it makes kind of a greenhouse effect under there. It holds the moisture in there, and they just grow like game busters. So
Wow.
it's a pretty cool technique. Now, again, you have to plant twice as much to get that because you're only going to have about 50% germination. But it works. It's a great technique.
Oh, it is.
Great technique.
Well, I'm thinking, I'm still planting, and this
Yeah.
weekend I haven't tried the forage oats.
Forage oats, good.
So I'm thinking, I've got a really long food plot.
Yes.
It's probably about 1.5 acres or so, and maybe split that food plot up, and see get that attractant in there,
Absolutely.
see how that works.
It'll work.
You seem
You'll
pretty
like
high, you seem pretty high on it.
Yes. It's, the thing is in the food plot world, there's not really a whole lot of new stuff that's out there. I mean, y'all have been planting food plots for a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
what really is new? I mean, turnip is a brassica. 10, 15 years ago, all of a sudden we started calling turnips brassicas. Oh, that's new. Turnips and rape and that kind of stuff's been around forever. But we're going to call it a different name now to make it new.
Yeah.
Well, it's been around forever, all right? Now there's different varieties. We have a bunch of different varieties. Other manufacturers have different varieties, but at the end of the day, it's a turnip or a rape.
Yeah.
It's just a variety
It's
of
like
things.
where we used to get
but-
5 pounds of chicken, 5 pounds of this, 5 pounds a week. We mix them in with
Mix
the
it
Right.
ourselves.
Now
Yeah.
you got them all in the same bag.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
So-
what makes it so much easier. But
I,
that's,
well, I sent Tecomate's Greenfield to a guy text me today, hey, what's in that? So I just had bought 10 more bags, and so I took a picture of
Picture of the
what's in
seed
it.
yeah.
And when you started calling that out, I pulled that picture up.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of people, when I say a lot of people like me that's just a planner, I'm not really big. If you were to ask me what's in the green field, I'd say, hey, I'd have to get a bag out and look. You're sitting here describing it. You're
Yeah.
more detailed than I am. But what Ken is saying is right. I remember a day when you would go in, you'd buy your rye
we
and your wheat,
Yeah.
and then you'd get, all right, I'm going to get a
Clover.
pound of rape and a
Yeah.
pound of clover,
Chicken.
and then you'd spend your whole morning taking your right arm and digging down in your cedar, to mix it up. And that's the neat thing about y'all's product. And I know other people have their own product, but the neat thing about it is somebody like you, think about what Mark said a while ago. I didn't know that he inspects the ratios and what's going in and all that stuff. Well, that helps me even more with Tecomate because Mark's, not only is his job on the line in the sense if nobody buys his seed or watches his show, I mean, you ain't going to be at work much. But his ministry's on the line, his character's on the line, and he ain't kidding. You think his phone, it blows up where people that don't give him a dime use him but because of friendship and say, what I need to do. Well, if everything he tells us to do and it flops, guess who's fixing to be looked at wrong? So that kind of encouraged me, and I've known you forever.
Yeah.
But just to hear that you're not just marketing a product after it arrives to you.
Right.
You know what's going on with it, so.
Well,
neat to me.
you made a good point. The average guy out there does not really. He doesn't really carry exactly all the components that are in there. All of the
Until it don't come up.
Yeah, exactly. he
He's
just.
looking for-
It is
he just
always
want-
the seed's
he
fault.
just wants to know.
Always. This seed's bad. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh man.
He just wants to
I
know.
could tell you, we could do a podcast on the stories that I've heard, and people would just, it would be hilarious. But
Yeah,
anyway.
it is your fault.
Oh, it's always my fault.
no matter, it didn't rain.
Hell, I didn't.
Oh yeah, I thought that stuff was good.
Yeah.
You know.
You actually get calls on that. You don't have
my-
any irate customers.
And
do you?
the bad thing is my cell number is public record, so
Oh my goodness.
it's 9:00 at night on a Sunday or
Oh,
a Saturday. Now a lot of those don't get answered. I'll
Just see,
confess, but
C's bad. What did you do? Well, no, I didn't disc it. You put it in front of. No, I didn't put it in. I thought you see, you're supposed to just come up. Did you even take it out of the bag, sir?
Let me tell you a lesson I learned the hard way with the Tecomate a couple years ago when I planted. Well, last year when I planted. Dumb Ken don't realize that, you don't load the hopper, the 300-pound cedar at the shop, and you ride down the road with it and get to your plots. Guess what happens? All your clovers go to the bottom.
Oh,
All your
yeah.
small seed goes to the bottom.
Okay.
So you start planting. Guess what you got in that plot you just did? Just clover, pretty much, and your
Yep.
small stuff.
yeah, that plot looked good. Probably
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
ones not
I mean,
so much.
I've got a plot we call Bryce's plot.
Yeah.
And it was all, with Tecomate, it was all clover. I could not figure, there was nothing else in it, in the green field. There was, Tecomate green field, it was all clover. And I just.
So what time did Ken call you? Was that a Monday morning at 6:30 when he's drinking his coffee?
He may have disguised his voice and blocked me or something
Yeah.
where I couldn't tell it was
Hey,
Ken. So.
and I heard the other day on the radio going down the road, it was this hunting deal. I was talking about some seed stuff. And they were talking about do not load your hopper until you're at the field ready to plant.
That's right.
Then
Yeah.
don't do it at the shop and go down your bumpy road and field roads and get
And
to
it
your
hits you.
plot.
Yeah.
And all the small stuff goes
Yeah.
to the
Did you
bottom.
ask
leaves-
God to forgive you for what you said about Mark Newell?
I know. And that's when I said, Kerry, I need some more bags. You remember last
I
year?
do remember
Some
that.
more bags.
Yeah.
So anyway, makes long
Yeah.
story short, that's the
Yeah.
tip for everybody.
Yeah.
Do not.
Yeah.
That's
you
a good
load,
point.
That is
You
great.
load your
Because a
cedar.
lot of
I'll
guys
say
do
Mark
that,
phone
you
calls. Yeah.
Save him phone calls.
yeah,
It's JT show. He had a biologist on there
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
a couple
That's
weeks
good.
ago.
That's a good point.
Wow.
Any mix, it doesn't matter if it's Tecomate's mix,
Take the
more
bag out to
more
the plot.
super blend, whatever it's called. Anything with those little seeds, brassicas, clover, and chicory, they're little bitty tiny seeds, and they're going to slowly filter through the wheat. They're going to
Yep.
filter through the oats. Even if you're mixing it yourself,
Yeah.
it's the same idea.
That's right.
You know,
You go to stir it
yeah,
around like you talking
that's
about.
right. Yeah, it's
It
good
goes
right
to-
there, but it's going to slowly start coming down. When I mix stuff myself, I'll mix that and then right on top, and I won't even stir them. I always put a little extra clover and chicory on top because
We
all
did
it's going
that
to do
the
is
other
fall.
day.
Yeah, we did that.
We
the other
did
day. That's
it the
why I
other
did
day.
that. Probably had no idea. I'm like, why is he doing that? But anyway,
By the way, I've been in the field with our biologist tonight, and what he's telling you he does, and he will correct you, and say whoa, 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 or no, 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 or get out of the way, or because deep down he's your friend, but this is serious business. This is food plot, so
Yeah.
it's going to be done like he wants it done. So I always like to work with him because I don't have to do nothing but the labor. He does the thinking.
So is that the picture today you sent me? You're working hard. You were sitting in the chair and somebody else.
Actually, that was on my property.
Okay.
And I did have Tecomate in my hopper waiting to go. 4 years ago, I'm coming out from planting, and I passed a shooting house on the creek stand on the property we got, and I said, "Oh, I'm fixing to get that chair. I've got a chair in that stand. I'm going to get it out, and I'm going to replace it. It sat low. My knees were under my chin. I couldn't deal with it. Sat good, but it's low. So I couldn't never get it out because it was so big. I had that disc on the back and had me a ratchet strap. I put the chair, office chair, on top of the disc, strapped it to bring it out, right? So I get to the house, it's dark, I get off the tractor, don't pay no attention. The next day people start coming and they're like, "What is that for?" So you know me, I'm like, well, if it's going to make people ask dumb questions, I'm going to leave it on there. 3 years, the recline. You can go out there right now and get on my disc and sit if you want to. And so today, Brother Josh Sparks was running the tractor, and I said, I walked out into the middle of the plot and I said, "Whoa." I climbed up on the back of the disc, got in the chair, crossed my legs, and had him take a picture, and I said, "Just another day at the office." So
He did.
anyway,
I got it.
But we were planting Tecomate, and I'll tell you something else that I have seen about Tecomate. that I didn't know, because I'm not everything I tell you tonight, I'm telling you, Mark Newell has taught me. But one thing is, when you're planting your food plots in the fall, you gotta be mindful of your spring. There's certain things that do certain things, you know, and so when you're planting, because you know a lot of people ain't fixing to redo anything in February for their turkey.
No.
You know, it'd be ignorant to do that. Maybe some sections of the world you might could, but not here in North Mississippi. So when you go to plant your food plots for your deer, and we're all excited about that, but in the back of our mind, Brother Mark is multitasking in this thing. So I know your blend has got a deer twist to it, a turkey twist to it, and so it's good. It's good for the whole hunting year.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so that's something you taught me that, you know, I heard him say all the time. Oh, now this right here, it'll really get right in the spring.
That's right.
You know, stuff like that.
Right, like that one plot we did where we dropped the big new shoot house where we can carry the wheelchair
Handicap.
handicap,
Disability.
that giant, it's about big as this room.
Yeah.
Remember, we put the Greenfield blend in there, and we was finna plant. I said, hold on a second, I want to add some white clover to it,
Right.
because that's good for what? The turkeys. The turkeys is going. Now deer like it too, but hey, this will sweeten this up for turkey season.
Right.
Which I saw 3 big gobblers standing in front of today, by the way. So
I got your picture.
like, what is that anyway? But yeah, I mean, there's so much that you could talk about specifics in food plot, and we could talk all night on them. But you know, again, it goes back. If you want to pick 2 blends, pick Greenfield and Max Track. You'll be fine. It's got everything in those blends. One of them's going to work great, and then you can kind of take it from there. If you're looking for something for peak attraction, but also you can plant it later in the year, try those forage oats out. I'm telling you, they're very good. You know, Buck Forage come out with forage oats years and years ago, and everybody's familiar with Buck Forage, all right? Well, Buck Forage is one of the oldest, it's probably the oldest forage oat that's on the market that's out there. Well, there are, this generation of oat here is 2 full generations ahead of Buck Forage oats. So, I mean, it's that far ahead.
Yeah.
The variety we had before, which was a great variety, there's another competitor that uses that variety now, and I'm not going to say it, but it's a good variety. But ours is even another generation ahead of those. So that makes all the difference in the world. These oats, when it comes to production, on the production side of them, produces 2 to 3 times more seed even than the other ones. It's phenomenal on these oats. I had a neighbor, Mr. Tom, right there in Algoma. He planted for a cover crop. I had a couple bags of oats left, and he had said, "You have something I can plant? I just need to plant for a cover crop by my house right here, about a half acre, something like that." Well, here's a couple bag of oats. That'd work great. Boy, they come up, look great. And all he did was bush hog those jokers. And you can go out there and look at it right now, and it's the prettiest patch of oats you want to look at. Looks like you dished it up and planted it. But it made so many seed. He just bush hogged them. There was so much seed there. Mr. Tom was a farmer in the day, and I mean, he knows plants and he knows production. He says if you would have run a combine through that, you'd be amazed how much seed heads were on there. But that's just these oats are phenomenal oats.
Turkeys love that.
And they do in the springtime when it makes those heads. Oh, they'll hammer them as well. But kind of goes back to what we was talking to earlier. It's hard to get excited about a particular food plot seed. I'm pretty excited about these oats, and it's pretty basic. It's nothing glamorous about them. It's an oat, but it is an excellent variety of oats.
How much will a bag cover?
One bag covers a half acre.
Half acre on that.
And it usually
Now,
runs
About
price-wise
$30.
about $30.
That's not bad. The Greenfield is a bag per.
One bag per acre on
Bag per acre on that.
40 pounds to the acre. I usually try to put 60 pounds to the acre if you're broadcasting. When you're broadcasting seed, you're always going to lose some on the edges. You're never going to get that perfect coverage if you try to do exactly what it says do. So if you'll go up to 60 pounds, that helps get your coverage. And when you have all those little seeds, the clovers and the brassicas and stuff like that, you want to make sure you get good coverage. So if you're broadcasting, which 90% 99% of people are broadcasting either by hand or 4-wheeler or tractor. I always try to bump it up to about 60 pounds to the acre, and the same thing with Max Tract as well.
I'm his seed guy the other day. We got a disc running. He's the supervising field operator, and I'm his hand. I'm on my 4-wheeler. I'm fixing seed, and I'm
You
like,
got a spreader on your 4-wheeler?
I do.
Okay.
And he said, I say to him, hey, I brought the seed and all, and I said, he said, how much you put out here? He'd been on my tractor bush hog, come up, and I said, oh, I've done put out a bag of that, of Greenfield, and I already put out a bag of fertilizer. He looked at me a minute and he said, how much seed you got? And I told him, he said, put out another bag. And what I'm saying about Ted is he just walks up. You know Brother Allen Gullett? Brother Allen can walk up to any structure and tell you down to the inch how much wood's in that structure. He's a carpenter. He's done it, and he's precise with what he does. Brother Mark done looked over the field, what we did, and I know he was clicking in his mind. He's like, you way short. And the other guy that was with us, Brother Josh was with us, said something about it, and Brother Mark said, no, I want it covered. He's serious. He's serious business about that. He said, what'd you do? I got off 4-wheeler and I put another bag in there. When I got done, he said, here, that's when you put all that in the top. You know, he starts bringing out more stuff to put in there. Because I know in his mind, he's going to give us advice. And he's going to try to tell us what to do. But if he's standing on your property, and I'm not trying to give you more of that business because I know you're busy, but if you ever want somebody to come to your property, look at it, assess it, and then tell you what to do, this guy can do it, man.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, he can do it.
Well,
You
did that for us a few years ago. Came up to our place.
You like to hair over everything, or just top sew everything?
My favorite's a cultipacker.
Quarterback. Okay.
I like if you have time. So many times, you know, it gets to time with your average guy planting food plots. You got a weekend. We got to get it done this weekend, and that's the only time that we have. And unfortunately, that's why germination a lot of times is lower than it needs to be, and you're not getting the results you need to be. And that's why I get a lot of these calls that I get. If you have time, like we finished up Gary's place yesterday, and we took time, we dished everything, we harrowed everything, we planted, we come back with a cultipacker, run over everything, and it's smooth and pretty and pristine. That's the way I want to do them.
Yeah, that's how I want.
Now before that we lined, and that's a whole nother conversation about getting the soil prepped. We lined and we fertilized. To do it right, you actually fertilize first. You disc or harrow it in. And even better yet, what we used on a lot of my properties this year was liquid fertilizer. Liquid fertilizer is awesome. It's already liquid. It immediately acts with the soil. And it's cheaper to use liquid if you got a good sprayer.
So you'd recommend liquid over?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can spray liquid over the top easier too, because again, and once it hits that foliage, it sucks it right up and it's there. It's already in the plant. Like a lot of people like the top dress, say in December or whatever. Liquid's so much better. If you have a good sprayer, you got to have a good sprayer. Right, a good 4-wheeler sprayer, UTV sprayer, tractor sprayer works too.
Yeah, got 100 gallon.
So the right way to do it would be.
My brother-in-law's got 100 gallon.
You done it right. We got it.
Yeah, I got one on the
got it.
back of my tractor, but
Yeah.
we've always done the bag fertilizer
Well, just tell you,
and put it out, maybe a couple of weeks before.
sure.
So we've had ours out for a couple of weeks. And
For an example, just to do the quick math, most people, anywhere from 200 to 300 pounds of fertilizer per acre is what they're rated to do. Let's just say it's 200 pounds per acre. Do the smaller end of it. 200 pounds, a bag of triple 13 is going to average across the state about $15 a bag. Multiply that times 4. What is it, big money man?
Oh, it's $60 easy.
$60 easy. Cover an acre. You can take a quart of fertilizer that costs you $20 and will actually give you a higher percentage of fertilizer in that quart that cost you $20 than the $60 did that you bought and pelletized.
wow.
I'll be doing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. You are welcome that we
Put
brought
that out.
him
Do I
in.
let it come up and then put that liquid on there, or put it
either
liquid
or.
out?
Either or. You can put
So
it.
would you disc it up and go ahead and get the ground broke and till it and then spray on top of that, or
Either way. Either way works.
It's still in the soil.
The ground's
It's still
going
in
to
the
take
soil.
it. Is going to take
Now,
it.
when you know, just depending on the concentration, depending on what type of soil or whatever that you're using, you can do it either way. It works. It's in the soil.
Well, it's got to
there.
be more solid too.
Yes, it's better, and it's not. You see, the bad thing about pelletized fertilizer is it's a salt, so it's actually doing harm to the soil to a certain extent.
Huh.
Any pelletized is a salt. It's a salt-based thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you know it's a salt because you get it on metal. It's going to rust the snot out of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Tastes like
So
salt.
it is. It's a salt-based. So, I'm not
I
saying.
see Kerry out there. That I wonder what that
He
takes.
mixes
That
it
look-
with his little
looks like
protein drink.
Hey, you can spray paint them. They look like nerds.
I hadn't thought about that. Give me some purple
Get
spray
you some
paint,
that
son.
purple and pink spray paint, and you got grape and strawberry nerds.
You can tell who is not the biologist in this conversation. Me and you. Go ahead, brother.
You know,
I've never heard of that.
yeah.
No.
Well, what do you think? What does most of your ag guys use? They
Yeah.
they use both, but most of them use liquid.
Well,
And you asked them why you use liquid. Number one, it's cheaper. Number two, it's better.
So would you spray it before and then plant it and then come back and spray it again?
You can. And another cool thing what you can do with liquid,
Would you do that, or would you?
depends on if you need to. Most of the time, I don't like coming back over it. I want to make sure my soil is in the best shape possible before I plant. Now, coming back afterwards, spraying, that can help some and all of that. But the thing I always hate doing, if it's wet, I don't want to rut my food plot up.
Yeah.
Because there's some, like Ken's place, it'll get wet. Some of our hilly places, it's not that bad. But some places get awful wet, and I don't like rutting the food plots up. But I'm going to tell you what I also have done with liquid before, especially bow hunters, bow season's going on full string here in Mississippi. I've taken that liquid before and put it in a pump-up sprayer and went about 30 yards from my bow stand and just sprayed that right there, and it sweetened up my area around the
Is
bow
that
stand
ammonium
before.
nitrate? What you?
It's not. It's a balanced fertilizer. It has what I like to use is it has a nitrogen in it, but it has a lot of potassium in it. So it has some other things in there as well that your pelletized don't.
So do y'all have a version of that, or do you buy?
We do, but I mean it's really not on the market anymore. It was something we used to sell.
Any
Delta
co-op, every
Delta
co-op,
Ag.
yeah.
If y'all familiar with Delta Ag,
Yeah.
they're a excellent source to get it from. Excellent source to get
I
it
got a
from.
buddy can get it.
There you go.
So we are sitting here learning about pelletized salt-tasting fertilizer versus liquid.
What I like is the $60.
$20.
$20.
Do we understand
For
that? $60
every
plots. For every plot.
$40 we
Per plot.
save, that's
You did how
more
many?
blackened
How many
salmon
plots?
Alfredo.
How many plots you do, Ken?
I did about 21 or 22 plots this year.
So let's say 22 times 40 equals, that's $880
In fertilizer.
in just fertilizer.
And probably spent more than that when I was with the biologist here because he's rolling
Yeah,
with it.
that's right. That's right.
This concludes the first episode of our two-part series with wildlife biologist and national sales manager for Tecomate Seed, Mark Newell. We will release the second part of this series Sunday night, October 14th, where Brother Mark will share more advice and the 3 H's to successful management practices. You do not want to miss this awesome episode. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to hearing from you. Please visit our website at southernlegendoutdoors.com. There you'll find access to all of our social media and many other features on our website. Hope you enjoyed this podcast, and be sure to tune in again for our next episode of the Be a Legend podcast on Southern Legend Outdoors.
Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. It's your time now. Be a legend. legend.